Hello, everybody. This is Vince Russo with a very special announcement that I need to make as it concerns not only pyroandballyhoo.com, but as it concerns a very dear and special friend of mine who's been a dear and very special friend of mine for, well over 15 years. It's a person that I've always cared about, that I've always admired, that I've always supported through the good and the bad. And I'm talking about, Joanie Laurer, Chyna. And the story kind of presented itself when following this Monday's Raw, there was an interview on the WWE Network. I'll give them their cheap plug. There was an interview on the WWE Network where Stone Cold Steve Austin interviewed Triple H. Now, I did not watch that interview. I'm really, at this point, I'm not interested in WWE propaganda. I know better, and I'm not going to waste my time. But I did look at the comments made by Hunter during the course of this interview. And the one that jumped out at me, really the only one that jumped out on me, and the only one that I cared about because another human being was involved, was the comment he made regarding Chyna and her induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, I know firsthand, and listening to me right now, if you're a wrestling smart and you're part of the internet wrestling community, you know that the WWE and professional wrestling in general, they have a catchphrase that they love to use. As a matter of fact, Vince McMahon used it with me literally just a couple of weeks ago. And that catchphrase is never say never. We've all heard that a million times, in the wrestling business. So when answering the question, which may have caught Hunter off guard, because I believe it was a question from a fan. He may have known about it. He may not have known about it, whatever the case. But when asked about Chyna's, possible induction into the Hall of Fame, the simple response is, hey, you know what, Steve? Never say never. That's always the line in wrestling. We all know that. But here we are 15 years later. And throughout my entire career, when I've watched Joanie and when I've seen Joanie and when I've spoken to Joanie, it has always been a tragedy to me because I've always said the WWE, in my opinion, absolutely devastated this woman's life, absolutely ruined her. Now, we all know the history and we all know the road that Chyna went down. And, as far as I'm concerned, the treatment by the WWE at the time, the treatment towards this just respectful, special person, I can't even put into words how the WWE chose to treat another human being. Okay, Stephanie and Triple H fell in love at a time when Triple H was dating Chyna. You don't stop love. You meet the person that's right for you. It's going to happen. There's nothing you could do about it. You can be honest with with your fiance. If you choose not to be, that could perhaps be handled differently. But whatever the case, that happens. Now that Stephanie and Triple H are together, difficult for Chyna to still be working at the WWE. Understandable. I totally understand that. And Chyna understands that. Very difficult situation. But now, in a matter of 24 hours, the woman loses her fiance. The woman loses her job, her livelihood. She spent the previous years building a brand, building Chyna that, with the help of the WWE, was known throughout the world. That's who she was. So now, within a matter of 24 hours, she loses the man she loves. She loses her job. You would think that that would be enough for one person to deal with, but I guess in the eyes of the WWE, perhaps it wasn't, because now Joanie was left to fend in the world, by herself and take care of herself and find a new career and find a new job and put this situation that was life-changing, that was traumatizing, figure out a way to put this situation behind her and move forward. A lot of people wouldn't have even been able to get over that. Think about it. Think about, women and sometimes the reaction to losing the man they loved. Think about men when they lose their jobs. Both of those things happened to her in one day. I can't imagine the trauma. But being the strong person she is, she gets up and she tries to go on and continue a life for herself. And she tries to go back to work. But the first thing she finds out is now, losing the fiance, losing the job, those two things weren't enough. Now we're going to legally strip her of her name. We're not even going to let her use the name Chyna. So now she can go out and make a living for herself. So now she's getting the meetings with some people that she knows. She still has some contacts. And, the first block is, well, what do you mean we can't use Chyna? People don't know who Joanie Laurer is. They only know Chyna. They don't, if you can't use your name, how are we going to be able to benefit from that? So now the fact that they stop her from using her name, that prevents her from getting work. Now, on top of that, she's got to come up with the legal fees to fight for her name and to get ownage to the name that she herself was a big part in getting over. So now it's costing her money to get her name so she can use that name so she can go out and work again. I don't know how she dealt with this. I don't think I would have been able to deal with this. And I can say that based on my experience, based on some of the cards that I've been dealt, that have been hard for me to bounce back from, based on my treatment from the WWE since I left. But compared to what Chyna went through, if that doesn't tell you right there the type of woman and human being that we're talking about, then you'll just never understand. That's all I can say. So all this led to the wrong road. Alcohol abuse. The use of some drugs, even though at no point, regardless what anybody thinks, was Chyna ever addicted to drugs or hooked on drugs. Chyna never had to go to rehab. Drugs were more recreational for her. Alcohol was really the issue. Then, she does her reality shows. She does a couple of reality shows. She's got to make a living. She's got to pay bills just like everybody else, which is the reason Vince Russo is behind a microphone 7 days a week nowadays. Bills don't go away. She gets an offer from Vivid, to do pornography. And, they offer her a lucrative amount of money. Chyna has to make a decision, and Chyna knows she has bills to pay. She's got to support herself. A lot of doors have been shut thanks to the WWE. So Joanie does what Joanie needs to do to survive. So she signs a contract with Vivid, and she goes on to make movies to support herself so she can go on. Through it all, there's a turbulent relationship with Sean Waltman, toxic, and I'm not even going to get into the details of that, but it was not a healthy relationship, I don't think, for either party. Finally, she reaches the end of her rope, and I'm talking about the end of the rope. I'm talking about being driven to a point where, you know what? Maybe it's not worth living anymore. And it was at that point, and that is known at rock bottom, where Joanie, who thank God is better than that, thank God is a spiritual human being, and she knew that wasn't the way to go, and she did have her belief in God, and she is spiritual, and thank God that did not happen. But she realized, I gotta go. I can't do this anymore, because the next time I might not be able to stop myself. She picks up, she goes to Japan for the next 3 years. She becomes a school teacher, teaching kids, helping kids in Japan. Doesn't play off the fact that, she's the world famous Chyna, who was an icon, who everybody in the wrestling business knew. Plays it down. I'm Joanie, teaches kids, creates a whole other life for herself, does no interviews, drops off the face of the earth, has nothing to say whatsoever about the WWE, Triple H, Stephanie. She's out of contact with the United States. Okay? Now she's living her own life. All of a sudden, there's the interview on the WWE network. And all of a sudden, the heir apparent to Vince McMahon, a person that I worked closely with, that I've always thought very highly of, that I've written column after column after column of putting this individual over. The guy that, when they wanted to fire him because of the incident at Madison Square Garden, that if you're a wrestling fan, you know about, when everybody wanted to fire him, the one guy who put his own head on the line was me, that went to bat for him and said that he was young, he didn't know any better, he followed his friends, because they were going to take all that out on Hunter. They were going to take it all out on him. I put my job on the line to support him. And I personally tried to talk him through that period in his life. Okay? There isn't anything I wouldn't have done for this guy. And you know what? Because I wanted to. Because Hunter was a great guy, and Hunter was a stand-up guy, and Hunter earned everything he ever got. I never had a single bad thing to say about this man in my life, ever. But here we are, 15 years after the fact of Joanie Laurer losing her fiance, losing her job, losing her name, losing opportunities to work, on the verge of killing herself, picks herself up on her own, moves to a foreign country not knowing anybody, doesn't say a word to anyone for 3 years. Now we're in an interview, and her name is brought up to Triple H. And all Triple H has to say is, Steve, never say never. He's said it before. I know a couple of years ago, Terry Taylor a friend of mine who works for the WWE now at the enhancement center, went to Triple H trying to get me back in the WWE. You know what Triple H told Terry? Terry, never say never. All he had to do was say it again. But you know what? It's this simple. It's this simple. We have to sell the WWE network. We have to get buys for the WWE network. So never say never. That's not really a controversial remark. You know, it's kind of vanilla. It's kind of me answering the question without answering the question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another dig at Chyna. She's living in Japan now. She's not going to say anything. As a matter of fact, it may not even ever get to her. So, you know what? Let's give her another kick in the gut. What difference does it make? That's what we do here at the WWE. We don't lift people up. We don't put people over that don't work for us. We don't put people over that helped us that helped us achieve greatness. We don't do that here at the WWE. Once you no longer work here, we kick you in the head. We kick you in the stomach. We kick you in the throat. We stomp on you because we don't care about you. And Chyna wasn't the first one. It's done again and again and again and over again. Anybody that contributed to the success of the WWE, we're not going to give them the credit. They're no longer here. We're just going to bury them. You know, thank God that those jackasses made peace with Jim Hellwig a week before he passed away. Thank God, because you know why? Even I wouldn't have wanted to live with the guilt that they would have felt dragging this guy through the mud with DVDs, just burying him because he was honest about his comments concerning the WWE. And they went out of their way to bury this guy. And I thank God for them that they made peace with him at the end of the day, and they did the right thing so they wouldn't have to live through the guilt of the dozens of years that they buried this guy. Okay? Same thing with Chyna. Buried her. From the day she walked out the door, buried her. So now Triple H makes the comment. Now let's address the Hall of Fame. And the comment goes something like this, and I'm paraphrasing, okay? Well, if we put Chyna in the Hall of Fame and an 8-year-old sees this and an 8-year-old Googles the name Chyna to find out who she is, well, you know, more or less then that 8-year-old is going to find out certain things about Chyna. And we all know what he's referring to. We all know exactly what Triple H is saying. So with that, you know, like, I was irate. And I was absolutely furious of this guy that I thought I once knew. The guy that I once knew wouldn't have been capable of making a remark like that. So you know what? Either he's bought into his own gimmick as the authority, or wherever his head is at, all of a sudden now he can justify in his mind that he can make this comment about somebody who's helpless and doesn't have a voice and probably won't respond. So immediately two things come to me. If God Almighty made Triple H a judge of people, then somebody needs to smarten me up. So somebody needs to tell me, Vince, while you were sleeping, God himself came down and anointed Hunter, and gave him the authority to judge others. So, you know, if I miss that, then let me in. Because who the hell is he to judge anybody? Who the hell are any of us to judge anybody? Was he in Joanie's shoes when she was trying to pay the bills and figuring out, where her next paycheck was going to come from? What was he in those shoes, or was he living cushly, married to the boss's daughter on the company jet? Does he have any idea where she was at that point in her life when she had to make that decision? But you know what? He's going to sit there and judge. And here's point number 2. Do we really want to do a character background check on the individuals in the WWE Hall of Fame? Do we really want to do that? Do we really want to go down the list and do a character reference of every one of these individuals? Now, you know what? There are going to be some that pass with flying colors. Mr. Bob Backlund's at the top of my list. But you know what? There are going to be others that maybe don't look too good. And that maybe made some errors in judgment throughout their lifetime. They're there, Hunter. Go look at your list before you use that as the lamest excuse on the face of the planet of, wow, Joanie Laurer's name will never be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Be a man, man up, say, you know what? I don't think it's such a good idea because my wife wouldn't like it. Then we'll respect you. But if you think you're going to continue to kick this woman who brought so much prestige and class to an organization at times that lacks class, just like with this statement, then you're wrong. Because what followed was, all of a sudden there's statements from Joanie online on Twitter pertaining to Hunter's comments. And I'm reading these comments just like everybody else. All the internet sites, they put out these comments. Listen, guys, there's no such thing as Twitter accounts being hacked. There's no such thing. The fact that somebody's putting out statements in Chyna's name, then it has to be Chyna, which is my problem all along with certain individuals in the internet wrestling community. You can hack somebody's account. I'm reading these comments. Yeah, I contacted the WWE about going into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Hunter really wants to get around the issue of my background, then put us in as DX. As a friend of mine once said, hell yeah. I'm reading these comments and I still keep in touch with Joanie. I still talk to Joanie, and I'm reading these comments and I'm like, this is not her. She would never in a million years say this BS. It's not her. So I contact her and I said, Joanie, not for anything. A, did you listen to the interview? B, I know these comments did not come from you. I know this would not be your reaction. So Joanie gets back to me and she lets me know she didn't even hear the interview. She heard of the interview. She had no knowledge and gave no approval to the comments that were made in her name. Now let me get this correct so you understand. There is a person that mans her accounts because Joanie doesn't like dealing with a lot of this stuff. And, the person will go out on Twitter and Facebook and various social media outlets and pretend to be Joanie, which is wrong to begin with. And I told her it's wrong. This guy pretended to be Joanie with me, and it blew my lid. So she didn't even know the comments that this individual made on her behalf. So I told her the comments and I said, Joanie, listen, I don't think this puts you in the best light. I don't think this is what you would have said. I said, do you object to, me going out there and basically saying you did not make those comments? And she said, absolutely, positively not. So then as I'm talking to her, I posed the next question. I said, look, Joanie, we're talking now. We're on Skype. What if we record and, you get the opportunity to single-handedly answer those comments made by Triple H? Because you know what? If he has the right to say the things that he said, then Joanie Laurer surely has the right to defend herself, whether she lives in another country or not. So with that, Chyna said, yes, I would like to address the comments that Triple H made. Now, I'm going to say this. Tomorrow, right here on Pyro and Ballyhoo, we are going to play the comments Joanie made as they pertain to Triple H's comments concerning her getting into the Hall of Fame. We are going to play them. It's not an audio clip. It's a video clip. So you will be able to see the words come directly out of Joanie's mouth, which has always been a problem I've had in the past. I do interviews. A lot of times audio isn't used. My words are taken out of context. My words are twisted around. And all of a sudden, I'm reading something I never said. I don't work that way here. That's why on Pyro and Ballyhoo, we do everything Skype. Everything is recorded with video. So this isn't Vince's opinion. This isn't Vince twisting words around. Here's the person. Here's what they're saying. We are going to present that tomorrow right here on pyroandballyhoo.com. You will be able to hear directly from Joanie's mouth her feelings about Hunter's comments pertaining to the Hall of Fame. And I'm also going to say this, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on this after Joanie's comments tomorrow. When Joanie addressed the Hall of Fame, there was a lot more said. There was a lot more said that shocked even me. And as somebody that's been in the wrestling business for a very, very, very long time, it is hard to catch me off guard. The conversation went on for almost 2 hours. There were a lot of things said. And I'm going to leave it at that at this point. I will address that. I will talk more about that tomorrow following Joanie's comments. And I'm going to tell you what the whole point of this is. And I really hope everybody understands because I have no agenda, guys. I never had an agenda in my life. I've always spoken the truth in my life. I've always been honest in my life. I'm not sitting in my house waiting for the telephone to ring and it being the mighty Vince McMahon on the other end. I could give a rat's ass. And I don't cuss, but I just said it. This isn't about burying people. This isn't about dragging anybody through the mud. This isn't about headlines. This isn't about sensationalism. This isn't about anything of that nature. What this is about is there has to come a point where somebody needs to make a stand. And if you follow me, and if you follow Pyro and Ballyhoo, and if you follow my blogs, and if you follow my websites, you know that I am very, very, very high on putting other people over. And, again, there were two things that God said. Two things. That's all you got to do in your life. Love God and love others. That's it. Love others means you put other people over. You put other people on a pedestal. You don't rip other people down in order to build yourself up. God himself said that. And that's how I try to live my life. The WWE, the way they do business is they rip other people down to build themselves up. And you know what? If you don't believe me, watch any episode of Monday Night Wars. It's all right there in full color on the WWE network for you to see how glorious they are and how they were responsible for the creation of the world. But anybody disassociated with the company at this point, they're useless slugs. And with the comments to Joanie, because they did it to me. They did it to me, and it aggravated me, and it got me upset. And I was just like, you know what? That's who they are. It's never going to change. Deal with it, Vince. Deal with it. But now, when it's an individual I love, who I feel the WWE singly destroyed this woman's life. A woman that if you saw her on television, if you knew her and you knew the kind of person she was and the heart of gold that she had and the constant laughter and the constant smile on her face, if you knew that person and you were witness to what this company did to her, it boils your blood. It kind of makes you mad. And the reason why it makes you mad is because there's no reason for it. Whether Stephanie married her ex-fiance, whatever the case may be, to not give this special individual the credit she deserves, and then from there to continue to kick her and put her down and take shots at her 15, almost 20 years later. You know what? I've had enough. And I'm willing to put my reputation and I'm willing to put everything I've ever done in the wrestling business on the line for her. You know why? Because she deserves it. The WWE wants to talk about a high road. Well, you know what? Maybe for once in their reprehensible lives, they should take a ride on it, because all they had to say was never say never. Those 3 words would have never triggered any of the potential of what's about to happen. But if it happens, it's simply because you brought it upon yourself. It's simply because of that smug, pompous, arrogant attitude that we can do and say whatever we want about any individual, because you know why? They don't matter. All that matters is the WWE. That's it. And we will destroy lives along the way simply because we can. So at the end of the day, wherever this story goes from here, I want Triple H to remember, never say never. That's all it would have taken. So tomorrow, right here on Pyro and Ballyhoo, we will play Chyna's comments direct from her mouth. You will see them come from her pertaining to Hunter's gutter shot. And after that, I will comment on the interview, the almost a 2-hour interview that took place following. I hope you tune in. I think it's very important. This woman needs her story to be told. Period. End of story. And in the next few days, it will be told.